Well, yeah.
Yep. We should be live.
We're not live in the app yet, but I mean, you literally just hit live. Okay, we are live.
Yep. Does it look right? Because on mine, it doesn't look great. But if you say it looks great, then we're good. Oh, yeah, now it looks good. Testing the audio. We should be plugged in.
Because I'm just freaking in the...
Oh, yeah, you're hooked up to our headset. That would make it hard to hear. It should. I think it should sound good. We've been doing everything the same. Testing. All right.
Oh, I
Great. But if you say it looks great, then we're good. Oh, yeah, now it looks good. That's really... Do you just have it turned up a lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really loud.
Yeah, turn it down a little bit just so it's like...
There you go. I just need to test it. I had audio issues, but...
So it sounds good?
You sound fine to me.
Okay. Just so long as it's not like...
Yeah, hold on. Let me double...
Yeah, preach. I don't want to do... We've done 3 episodes and then looked back and been like, well, that's unusable. 2 episodes maybe? The Void, as we call them.
I don't remember.
Sounds a little off, looky, but...
Yeah, okay.
Crazy.
Let me just take a quick peek at it. It also... Why does it look like it's peaking super high? Hold up.
I think that's the issue. It's getting garbled as we
Hold up. Be quiet. I'm going to test the mic. Yeah, it's like the... All right, if I just turn it down a little bit. I mean, that should be... That's still so loud. Test it. Yeah, I mean, that looks like that should be fine. I don't know why. For some reason, it seems like it's picking up our voices a lot more than normal, and I'm not sure why. But I just turned it down a little bit on my computer, and that should do it. But if you want to give it another listen just to double check.
It sounds way better to me.
All right, we'll just run with that then. Yeah, we are live. We should be good to go. JP, are you ready? Cool. Do we want to just go and start the podcast and dive right in?
Yes.
All right, cool. Hit it.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to...
You are muted.
That's a fire start to the podcast, man. I will
let me
restart
let
it.
me end the recording.
Yeah. I started talking like I can't hear myself.
Yeah.
Something it has to. Right?
Go ahead.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Technical Fowl podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack Anderson. Good to be back. Me and Sanders both missed last week. I was on my honeymoon, and Sanders was camping.
Yep.
So big shout out to JP for holding down the fort. I think he enjoyed it. Did you enjoy your solo episodes?
Yeah, I forgot how, hard it can be to get through like the witching hour, as Scott Hansen would call it. Like the last 15 to 20 minutes are they're hard once you've talked for 45 minutes straight. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
I think that was JP's way of saying he missed us.
I'll take it. I'm not sure if that's really what he meant, but
Sure.
we can interpret it as that.
He said it was hard being by himself, which is code for he wishes we were there.
Yeah. I enjoyed my week off. I had fun in Charleston on my honeymoon, like I said. Ate a ton of good food. Went and saw the Braves Friday. Saw Acuna's sick throw to nail the runner at third and get the double play. Felt blessed to be there live. Still a little in awe about it. But overall, good week. Wedding went smooth, I guess. I mean, I'm married now, so that's a dub. But
Yeah.
Sanders, how was camping?
It was awesome. It was very cool. No signal where I was. Like literally zero. We go in this valley and we camp there. And most days we don't leave the campground. And so like we're in this valley, so the signal cannot, I just powered my phone off every day. And then occasionally we would leave and go to a museum or go for a hike or we tubed one day, which
Fun.
is awesome. So occasionally I would have a signal and I could catch sports news and updates. So I tried to stay up to date on what was happening with Mississippi State draft signees, because I literally we went into the valley like late Monday morning, early Monday afternoon. And so I missed the last half of the draft, the last probably 15 rounds. I saw the first 3 rounds on Sunday and then like the first 2 rounds on Monday and then missed the rest. And so every time I got a signal, I was like, all right, who I was trying to refresh and like, okay, who got drafted? Did this guy get drafted? So I was trying to stay up to date with that. And then the throw was Friday night. We made the drive back Saturday. So I get in the car Saturday. We drive out of the campground, and I'm there. And, like, the first thing I see is just Acuna, the throw. And I'm like, what is this? I watch it. It was literally insane. Otherworldly. Dude's an alien. That was insane. And then as a Padres fan, I wish that I could say that Tatis's throw later that night was as cool.
It was very good.
It was good. And on any other night, it probably would have been the best throw of the day. But it just, the people who were like, oh, it was better because, you know, it didn't go as hot. Like, it didn't have the same arc as Acuna's or this and that. I was like, it's just not as good.
I mean,
I'm a
threw it
Padres
half
fan.
as far, so.
Yeah, it's just not as good. And the people who are trying to argue, like, come up with these excuses to say that it is as good, it was not. The Acuna throw,
Sure.
It was just insane. I mean, it's up there. Who was that throw from left field? I think it was one of the guys who played football and baseball.
Bo Jackson.
That throw. Like, it was up there with, like, that's going to be one of those throws.
It's an all-time great throw.
In 20 years, when people our age are, like, hanging out, like, hey, let's watch, like, you know, greatest baseball plays ever. Like, this throw is going to be on those replays, on those videos. So it was insane. I was very glad that I came out of the campground when I did, so I could see that. But it was awesome. I feel very refreshed. My brother's girlfriend came with us, and that was her first time ever sleeping in a tent. She fit right in. I think she slept 12 out of the 24 hours a day. So, like, literally, we would get up, eat breakfast, and the way we camp is we take our tents, but then we also, like, we set up an entire, like, kitchen, like 2 cook stoves. Like, we've got tubs that we, like, warm up hot water, do dishes in. We glamp, as we call it. It's glamour camping.
Yeah.
So we have a whole setup that we take, and we're pretty fancy with it. We're not the fanciest, but we're not roughing it by any means. So we get up, eat breakfast, and then she crawls into my brother's hammock. She's like, all right, guys, I'm going to take a nap. And she naps. And then she naps probably for an hour, and then, you know, we get up and we'll play a card game or hang out and then eat lunch, and then she sleeps from like 2 to 5 and then gets up for dinner, and then we're sitting around the campfire after dinner, and she's like dozing off, and she's like, all right, time for me to go to bed. Like, it's 8:30. And this is 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. We were in North Carolina, so we're on the East Coast. Yeah. It was just so fun. It was awesome having her and making fun of her. We started placing bets after every meal finished. I was like, all right, we just finished lunch. It's 12:42. I'm going to take 12:53. She'll be asleep. Take the under. So it was pretty fun. Awesome time having her and other family. My cousin got married, so his wife came with us and joined us for the first time. It was awesome. I love camping. We do it every year. It's actually my first year in like 4 years. So,
but y'all typically try and do it every year.
Yes, and then with college and other stuff, it's been harder. Yeah. But this is my first back in like probably 3 years.
Fair. Well, JP, they're probably a little more up to date on what you've been up to. But I know you said you golfed twice this weekend. Mm-hmm. Would you like to tell the folks about that?
Yeah, we got back in the win column after the major defeat. A couple weeks ago, got 2 wins this weekend. Won the annual Match Play Classic, which is where you take the 4 of us and we play 2 1v1 matches on the front 9, and then winners play each other, losers play each other. Double the points towards our club point standings, so I'm back tied for the lead in club point standings, picking up 2 wins this weekend. I had a good time playing with them. They're just always a blast to play golf with them. If you watched us play together and you were like a random, you would think like we all hate each other, because anytime anyone hits a bad shot, it's just everyone's just laughing at them. Like a first time golfer, or I would not bring you guys out there, or at least tell my friends to act different, because
it'd be over.
Your dreams would be crushed. You just never want to play golf again, because we just make fun of each other the entire time. So it was a good time, and then drove back this afternoon, and here we are.
Hence the late show. Jack, do we want to discuss or address your hair, given this is the first time our viewers... This is a podcast bet, is what it really is, kind of. Yeah, we can have you go around in front of the desk and get up close.
Yeah, I mean, we can address it. I was just kind of going to let it slide and be like, everyone try and figure out what happened. And in reference to the podcast bet, we each put out like our first TikTok on our TikTok page, and the rule was it least amount of likes or least amount of views?
I think it was least likes.
Like ratio.
Like ratio. Yeah, whoever the worst like ratio had to buzz their head.
The view, yeah.
Now, that was largely a joke. But I did lose that. I put out 10. It is my best performing TikTok to date in terms of views.
It was the Buzz Williams.
My Buzz Williams
Yeah.
one, calling him a charlatan. Still very much stand by
Buzz
that
Williams
take.
is a charlatan.
And here's why.
Yeah.
But no. So I did lose that, but the boys weren't gonna make me buzz my head. It was never really a fully sincere.
Yeah, not with a wedding 2 months
bet.
away.
But I did convince my now wife to let me buzz my head post wedding ceremony, and then like we went into the reception, did cake, and did first dance, and then I stepped outside and buzzed my head, and then went back in kind of for the more fun festivities, all the dancing and that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good photos of me getting my head buzzed outside the Ritz in West Point.
Yeah.
It feels weird, man. Sometimes I jump scare myself in the mirror sometimes. Because, I mean, the podcast is new. But for y'all that don't know, I've had really long hair before. But even, I mean, and it varies in length, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But it's never been anywhere near this short for years and years. It's always been on the medium long to long side.
Yeah.
But it's weird. I think I had probably 2 to 3 dozen people rub my head the night of the wedding.
Yeah.
Want to know how it feels. And it feels kind of cool, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
It's a nice...
To have people rub your head or just
No, like just how it just like it's a nice sensory thing.
Yeah.
Honestly. So
No,
I can't
definitely
hate
feel
it.
that. Like whenever I had a shorter haircut, not shorter, but like 2 haircuts ago, the back was probably about as short as your back.
Yeah.
And so I would just sit there and rub the back of my head. And last time she cut a little bit longer, which was sad. The story of the bus cut was kind of funny because like from my end, Lucy texted me Thursday. It's like, hey, when you told me that you were buzzing your head, I was just like, oh yeah, I've got trimmers. Like
Yeah.
kind of as a joke because I thought you were joking. I was just like playing along with the bit. And then Thursday, Lucy texted me and said, hey, don't forget to bring your hair trimmers. And I said, what? She said, for Jack to buzz his head. I was like, I thought y'all were joking. And so I texted my parents. I was like, hey, I know y'all have the stuff. Please bring it because I kind of told Lucy and Jack that I had it. So they brought it. And at the reception, after the cake cutting, y'all had said you were going to do it like after the fake exit. So like 2 hours into the reception. So I'm standing there dancing. Lucy comes up and goes, Sanders, where are the trimmers? I was like, we don't need this for 2 hours. She's like, no, go get them. I sprinted probably 200 yards to my car and then sprinted back with the trimmers, brought the blanket, set it up. And then Lucy didn't even let me take a pass with the trimmers.
Oh, you didn't get it. I'm sorry.
I was like,
So-
oh yeah, I'm going to do it. She goes, no, we're going to let his sister do it. I was like, wow, that's really sad. All this
Sorry.
work and I don't even get to take a pass.
That's brutal for you. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I got to rub it. We're good.
Yeah, it's a good luck charm now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, it was awesome.
That's why I have a buzz cut now. As for the meat of the podcast, the actual
the
topic
important
of the
stuff.
podcast,
That was a good catch up.
Yeah.
Any other? I can't think of anything other big news. So yeah.
I mean, JP's assuming we can't talk about the summer I turned pretty yet. That'll have to be a Wednesday show thing.
That's fine.
Unfortunately.
That's fine.
But yeah, we'll get there. But no, meat of the podcast. While we're really here, NFC East predictions / preview. We're still chugging along. We're over halfway now.
Yes.
This show makes it over halfway. So
Yes, this is the 5th.
Why does your thing have a red line at the top?
because I'm special, I don't know.
No, I'm just trying to figure out like we're getting different sound. Like we think it's louder than normal, and I don't know if that's part of it. Not too worried about it, but
None of my inputs are different than y'all's.
yeah, not yeah. All right, sorry.
So I can't really say.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
sorry, team.
Continue. Meat of the podcast,
Yeah.
as you were.
Commanders.
Halfway through.
We're a little over halfway through. Commanders, Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, reigning Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia
Yeah.
Eagles make up the NFC East. A tougher conference, but I guess who's the first team on the board?
It will be the Dallas Cowboys. Are we diving in?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're diving in.
All right.
JP, you teeing
Take
up
it away,
the
JP.
Cowboys?
Yes.
Bet.
Dallas Cowboys let go of Mike McCarthy this offseason. There was a kind of a big dispute over, and it was really just it's a story of their offseason so far of just a delay of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and because of that, the Cowboys were forced into a spot where they didn't have the candidates available that Cowboys fans would hope would become the head coach, and so now they have settled for Brian Schottenheimer, an in-house hire. The offensive coordinator now becomes the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. Tons of questions about that. But like I said, it's been a story now of Dallas off seasons. This was the story last season with Dak Prescott. They waited literally until right before kickoff to sign Dak to a multi-year extension. And it seems like that's going to be the same case for Micah Parsons, which is really the big question of Dallas in the offseason right now. Last season they were 7-10. Dak got hurt about midway through the season with a hamstring injury, kind of took away his entire season. Throughout that time, Cooper Rush started games, Trey Lance started games, and this was a team that even with Dak Prescott missing 9 games last season, they were 7-10. Dak has been a quarterback. Pull up my Dak graphic, please. Who has played when healthy, has led to the Cowboys to either in the postseason or just outside of the postseason. Now, since 2020, when he broke his foot, he's now had 3 of 5 seasons. He's missed more than 5 games. That's kind of hurt them in a lot of cases. But when he plays, like in 2023, when he was a second-place MVP vote getter, they were 12-5. This was a really, really good regular season team that has just had questions in the postseason. They'll come into this season, Dak under contract for $50.5 million. Pull up the salary graphic. The rest of the team is also on pretty cheap contracts, but this becomes a year for the Dallas Cowboys where it's a win-now year. They need to be the team that wins the division. In the NFC East, there hasn't been a repeat champion since 2004, and so the Cowboys and the Commanders are really the only teams you could say will win the division this year because that's 20-plus years of that stat holding true. And given that contract situation, looking forward to next year, with Micah Parsons not even under contract, which will now be at minimum $42 million a year because he wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, and T.J. Watt last week signed for $41 million to become the highest paid non-quarterback ever for the second time of his career. Micah is going to be at least $42 million, and already next year looks preposterous from a roster building standpoint, with Dak due $74 million, CeeDee Lamb due $38, and then you have a few other key pieces that are big jumps in their contracts. Osa, the defensive tackles, get a $14 million jump, and Micah Parsons you expect to be at least $18 million in jump. So for this team, it's a win now. They got to win this season, and they're going to be under a lot of pressure with that first-time head coach. Dak's coming off an injury, prolonged injury, where he missed the back half of the season. I do want to say, though, Dak State podcast, yes, you see the Mississippi State logo in front. We love Dak, and Dak has been good. The record graphic shows that. And then also, he's been really good in division throughout his career, 9-4 against the Eagles for 260 yards a game. The Commanders, he's been 11-2, and the Giants, he's been 13-2. And so this is a guy through multiple head coaches, Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy, and now with Brian Schottenheimer, he's won games in division, and winning games in division in the National Football League gives you a chance, 1, to not only win the division, but 2, to make the postseason. So what are y'all's expectations for the Cowboys this season? What's it going to look like with Brian Schottenheimer, Dak Prescott? Do you agree? Is this a win-now season for the Cowboys?
I like the win-now point. I mean, you already pointed out the contracts, how steep it gets. And also it just, in terms of the Dak, even CeeDee Lamb's been there a couple years now. I think if this group can't win this year, it kind of becomes a question of like, okay, when are they ever going to win?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the kind of key pieces have been there for a couple years now. I don't love the head coaching hire. I think you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone that likes the head coaching hire. Our fan picks, we'll get there in a minute, is made by Andrew McBride, someone that's been mentioned on the podcast multiple times. Another person, he's a fan pick, so he's a big Cowboys fan. That's a Cowboys fan right there that's very critical of the head coaching hire. So it's not, even their own fans, I guess is what I'm saying, are critical of the head coaching hire. Because it's a typical Jerry Jones head coaching hire in terms of kind of just seems like another yes man, someone that it allows him to maintain a lot of control of the team, and he won't get much pushback from the head coach, which is what he really wants. In terms of them getting it done this year, I anticipate them to take a step forward from last year. They went, you said 7-10 last year. I think they'll be an above 500 team. But this version of the Cowboys has had regular season success multiple times, so it really comes down to what they can do in the postseason. And I don't really see them being a team to get it done in the postseason. So,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I I'm not the biggest fan of the hire. I think there's some other better candidates out there, specifically like a Mike Vrabel kind of guy who we saw have some success at Tennessee, and then I think get fired. And I think that he was a guy that deserves another chance as a head coach, and would love to see that happen. I don't think that promoting from within for an offense that has not, like, I was just looking at their stats for last season. When I mean, Schottenheimer was the offensive coordinator last year, right?
Yes, but he was not calling plays.
Okay, so who's calling plays? McCarthy.
McCarthy.
Okay,
loves
McCarthy's
being
calling
the play
plays.
caller, yeah.
Has Schottenheimer called plays?
Yes, Brian Schottenheimer is going to call plays this season.
Okay.
As the head coach. This is the first time he'll be calling plays since COVID with the Seattle Seahawks. Those Seattle teams, which was 3 seasons with Russell Wilson, they were top 3 in rushing attempts for the 2 of the 3 seasons in Seattle. They were a heavy ground and pound kind of team, but there was also it was kind of a limitations of part of it was that was the let Russ cook years that we remember, and there were obviously they would think limitations there from the quarterback standpoint. So he was a heavy run game coordinator in Seattle, but he'll be calling plays this season with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like you said, that was kind of a dictated by his situation. That Schottenheimer was running the ball a lot. I don't know. I hope to see him transition, given that he's in a different situation now, and I'm sure that he will take advantage of his situation now. I don't know. Talking about Dak's contract, and like we weren't specifically talking about this, I don't think Dak, when he got that contract extension, was the highest paid quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. That was, I think, a little extreme. So I'll be interested to see what the offense looks like, because right now I don't know. They've got Miles Sanders as the running back.
It's a topic I want to bring up. That's one of my big questions.
So let's talk about the run game, because Schottenheimer has been a heavy runner previously. Let's talk about the run game.
For the backs, Dallas has 3 of them that are more than likely have the best chance, 2 that are most favored, and then there's a 4th outlier that I think is going to get carries this season. They've got 4 backs. Pull up if you got the fantasy average draft position. So this kind of puts you in perspective in terms of how many kind of like fantasy points you would expect from them, what the public views the perception of the run team is going to be. They bring in Javonte Williams from the Broncos. They draft Jaden Blue from Texas, the big home run hitter. They bring in Miles Sanders from Carolina. And then they also draft Phil Maffa, who was a great tailback for Clemson for many years. And so they're going to have 4 backs there. All of them have the potential to get carries throughout the season. I would not be surprised if all of them did. That's kind of going to be my question to y'all, and a question for the season is who's the lead back for them, not only from a fantasy football perspective, but they're going to have to decide on who their workhorse really is, because Schottenheimer in his time in Seattle was a team that ran the ball a ton. And I think with the weapons they have, like the offense, for one, they're going to have to be good, because there's basically nobody on the defense and outside of Micah Parsons. So their offense is going to have to score a ton of points, which has kind of been how Dallas has been.
Sure.
Besides the years with Dan Quinn. So for me, their tailback, it could be any 4 of them. I expect it to be all 4 of them. I'd put Miles Sanders lowest on that list, though. I think Javonte Williams is going to start the season, but you're going to see a ton of Jaden Blue. They'll rotate those 2 guys through, but I would not be surprised if all 4 got carries. And I do kind of like the cast. I don't think it's bad for a team that is kind of hesitated to put money into running backs outside of Ezekiel Elliott. They've had tons of chances to land these other big free agent running backs throughout the past, and they've had chances to take swings. They were in the running for Derrick Henry, and they just decided to not cough up the money for it. So Dallas's running back situation, there's 4 of them, which I think for Cowboys fans, it's a positive, because you think of last season, no one thought anything of the running backs with Rico Dowdle. And I forgot their backup tailback, but it's an improvement on the running back room for me.
It was the guy that went to Carolina. Is that Rico went to Carolina?
Rico went to Carolina, yes.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's an improvement for me. in the running back situation, and I think it's going to help them offensively a ton. Offensive line, too, they add Tyler Booker in that first-round pick, the first surprise pick of the night for a draft that we thought was going to be crazy. Tyler Smith is going to start immediately, or Tyler Booker, apologies. Tyler Smith will start at left guard, though. Offensive tackle is kind of a question. Tyler Guyton, a third Tyler on the offensive line, and Terrence Steele, who's getting paid all that money, were not necessarily great from a PFF perspective last season. And the offensive line doesn't have Zach Martin anymore. Zach Martin retired this offseason. And then they lose. I think a big story for them is, what if Dak gets hurt? And that kind of goes back to the Dak missing games in the last 5 seasons. They don't necessarily have, that Will Grier would probably be their backup quarterback. Yeah. And that would be a problem.
Maybe Joe Milton.
Joe Milton was traded for, and he could be their backup quarterback as well, although I doubt it. Offense is going to be the story of the Cowboys this season. It's going to be the engine of the team. And I hope it's good. I think it will be productive. Dak has been productive with a lot of offensive coordinators, but I'm very, very curious to see how Schottenheimer looks calling plays for the first time since COVID.
Yeah, I just want to go back and touch on the running backs real quick. I kind of agree with what you said. If I'm interpreting what you said right, it feels like a running back room where the sum is greater than the parts. Mm-hmm. You don't look at any of these guys, and if they're your running back one, you kind of want to go vomit, honestly, because, Javonte Williams had 500 rushing yards last year for the Broncos. Wasn't great, 4 touchdowns. Miles Sanders, 200 rushing yards last year. These guys have all had – I'm talking about the other 2 guys are rookies, so I'll get to them in a second. But we're looking at guys that have kind of had chances to be running back ones before, and every time they have that chance, they fall flat on their face. Mm-hmm. So I think their time their chance to be a running back one is over. That ship has sailed for them.
Yeah.
The younger guys, it's more of a wait and see. Phil Maffa had his moments at Clemson. Actually, I think worked really well there as a workhorse back when he got a ton of touches and stuff like that. He struggled to stay healthy, I believe, last year.
Yeah, last season
was a
he
huge
was dealing
issue
with
for him.
A shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And for a running back, if you got a shoulder injury, you don't want to run into anybody.
Yeah, it makes it tough. And then Jaden Blue is your more home run hitter, catching passes out of the backfield. Had some fumble issues last year at Texas, which doesn't really fly in college, and it definitely doesn't fly in the NFL. So if he can't hold on to the football, he's going to struggle to get many touches. So basically kind of dogged on everyone in the group. But when you put it all together, I think you have some pieces. They all do kind of different things. I could see it working out really well or good enough to service, a Dak CD Lamb combo and a good passing attack.
Yeah.
It's just going to come down to, can they manipulate the pieces right? Can Schottenheimer find who to use in certain situations and get them in the spots they need to be to succeed?
Yeah, I'll say so. The thing I don't like about it, and I think it's the thing I see a lot in pickup sports. Like if you remember our Suco volleyball team, right? You can say that the sum is greater than the parts. The issue is you can only have a certain number of those parts on the field at one time.
Sure.
And so you can say, oh, well, this running back provides this aspect, and this running back is, he provides this skill trait. The issue is when each of those running backs, sure, as a sum, they make a Christian McCaffrey or a Saquon Barkley. The issue is you can only have one, maybe 2 of those guys on the field at one time. Mm-hmm. So the defense is preparing for that. I don't know how well that will play out. Bringing in those guys when you have that mentality. Whereas, I don't know how that'll play out. I'm not the biggest fan.
Ideally you would like to have a Christian McCaffrey.
Correct, of course. I'm not that's not an argument I'm trying to make. The sum being greater than the parts, I feel like is going to be...
It's a risk, for sure.
It is definitely a risk. I will say, when you were talking about the passing offense, we didn't mention George Pickens. I think the passing offense has the weapons to be very good. The question will be, what does that passing offense look like with Schottenheimer calling the plays? That's where my question is Schottenheimer going to stick with that run-heavy offense and try and put a square peg in a round hole when he's got the weapons and he's got the quarterback in Dak Prescott, who, while I don't think ever deserved highest quarterback or highest paid player in the NFL, he's a very good quarterback on his high end, is a top 6 quarterback probably. Like if he plays at his best, he can be up there with the top 6 quarterbacks, probably that upper A tier below Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. So can he get the best out of Dak Prescott, and can he utilize CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens? Can he create those opportunities and then open up those opportunities for a running back who isn't a Christian McCaffrey, but give them the opportunities where the defenses are threatened by a high-end Dak Prescott working with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens?
I think the biggest thing for the Cowboys this season is it's going to be how do their 3 best players play in the game any given Sunday, and that tells the story of whether they won that Sunday or not. If Micah is just eating alive the quarterback, they're going to win that Sunday.
Yeah.
If Dak can throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, they've got a chance. If CeeDee Lamb goes for 200 plus, they've got a chance. If none of those things happen, the Cowboys are in trouble.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't even put the pressure on Schottenheimer here. I don't think he should be under fire really whatsoever, and he won't be. Dak is going to be the pressure point. Micah is going to be the pressure point, and CD as well. And I do think they're going to succeed more than they will fail, which is why I have them also having a winning record this season. On the running back perspective, final point on that, I do want to say, yes, sum is not greater than its whole parts, but I do think they've made the right moves this offseason in terms of adding backs that fit the system. Javonte Williams is a willing pass catcher. Jaden Blue, that's probably his best skill is catching passes. So adding those with the quarterback and Dak, who likes to throw the ball a lot, it's actually really something he's never had, because Ezekiel Elliott was a workhorse back, and it was really never a pass catcher. Tony Pollard really was never a pass catcher back for them. He was also kind of a ground and pound with a little bit more speed than Zeke. So I think it could be interesting to see how that plays out with Dak now that he's got a back that can catch it out of the backfield and go make a few guys miss. Defensively is where there's a ton of questions, and Micah Parsons is going to have to fill a ton of holes, but this is a team that's beat up in an off season. The season isn't even starting, and they're not healthy. Demarion Overshown tore 3 ligaments in his knee in Week 14. He's likely to miss much of the season, but he's optimistic of returning this year healthy. But who isn't optimistic in their recovery process? And then Trayvon Diggs is going to begin the season on the PUP list, so he's guaranteed to miss the first 4 games. And more than likely, I think he wouldn't return until about Week 7. The defense, they have names, but you know the names only because the Cowboys are on your damn TV every single week, with guys like Malik Hooker and Deron Bland, who was not great last season after a excellent season 2 years ago. Donovan Wilson, same story.
Gig 'em.
Damone Clark being basically their lead linebacker in the middle. It's really a defense that doesn't have, outside of Micah, I don't think there's another guy on that defense where it's like, okay, you fear him going into a week. You game plan for that guy. Malik Hooker is really the only guy I kind of put in that conversation. These are just guys that play for the Cowboys, and because they play for the Cowboys, you know their name.
Yeah. I'll say, so my counter to that would be I don't think there are any other guys that like you fear or have to game plan around, but because you have a Micah Parsons, I think they do have the guys who can take advantage of the other team having to game plan around Micah Parsons. They bring in Dante Fowler, who me and Jack were talking earlier today, led the Commanders in sacks last year with 10.5. They return Osa Odigizua, I believe that's right, who had 7.5 sacks. Hold on, I just looked at it. He had 7 sacks as a defensive interior last year with the Cowboys. So these are guys who I don't think by any means, like if you take Micah Parsons out of the equation, then you're in trouble. But because Micah Parsons is in the equation, now all of a sudden if he's getting double teamed and you've got Odigizua and Dante Fowler working one-on-ones on the other side, that's a decent setup. That gives you have a lot more confidence about that than you do if you take Micah Parsons out.
They also drafted Donovan Ezeraku.
Correct, in the second round.
They fell to the second round. I really liked his tape. It's a defensive line is actually a strength, but I do still think, like you said, if Micah Parsons is out, it's not a strength
Correct.
anymore, because they are not players that are necessarily going to do it on their own. Besides, you could say maybe that's the case for Dante Fowler with the way he played last season. But when they're together and healthy, the defensive line is going to be good. But for me, it's really the secondary and the middle of the defense. The linebacking group is not great either. And without DeMarion Overshown for much of the season, there's not really anyone in that linebacking group that I trust. Deron Bland, it felt like with last season, you could almost say maybe 2 years ago it was just a luck of the draw kind of thing. The ball just came his way when it needed to, and he got the picks. If you go back and watch them, not necessarily a ton of them were necessarily like elite plays made by him. And Trayvon Diggs, like I said, will not be there playing. But Trayvon's also had his questions a ton in his career in Dallas, kind of been a cornerback that gets blown by and gives up big plays. But he has highlights, and he's related to Stephon Diggs, so people view him highly.
And he has stars on his uniform. That helps too.
It's also true. So defensively, it'll be an interesting question. Matt Eberflus comes over from the Chicago Bears, and he'll be the defensive coordinator, and he'll call plays this season. Their defense just has to, for me, I think their defense just has to be good enough to keep them in the game, because I expect at least the offense to be an offense that's top 12 in the league. The weapons are too good for them to not be. If they're not, then Dak isn't playing well, and he'll be under fire. But he's under fire every single week, so he's kind of used to that at this point. For me, right now, though, it's the contract situation. Micah Parsons has to get paid somehow.
Yeah.
This is letting him go is just an extreme problem. Because Micah is in that top 10 class of players in the NFL, and he's a game wrecker, and he has been throughout his career in Dallas. He's been a guy that just takes over defensively, and like we're saying, he makes the defense good by playing because he allows other players to play well as well. And I would relate letting him go to like if the Mavs had let Luka Doncic go in free agency. Like, you just don't do that. And Dallas, that's already happened before, and they're no stranger to poor moves made by management. So for me, it's Micah. One, why the hell did we not pay Micah earlier? Because this is,
he's only getting more
as
expensive.
you've seen, it's only getting more expensive. If they had paid him last year, it would have been roughly about $35 million a year. That's $7 million. That's another player you can add to your defense or offense in the offseason. So that, for me, I'm a kind of a Cowboys guy by fault of Dak Prescott being the quarterback. Why hasn't that gotten done? That needs to get done before I really think about the season as a whole. Going into predictions for us.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about
the
defense.
secondary?
Secondary, yes.
Sure.
So I was just looking. They spent a third-round pick on Siobhan Ravel, who I don't think is your traditional third-round pick. Coming out of Eastern Carolina, the dude was very elite there. His issue was injuries. In around 800 snaps, he allowed only 3 touchdowns, not 300 touchdowns. He allowed 3 touchdowns in roughly 800, 900 snaps as a sophomore and junior, as a starter. He only played 3 games as a junior. So I do think that if he stays healthy, he could be kind of a boost to that secondary and maybe help take some of the load off Trevon Diggs or Deron Bland. And what I'll say to both those guys is, as a state podcast, I'm going to tie this to Mississippi State baseball. They're kind of like the Hunter Hines of cornerbacks. They come up, and there's like, with Hunter Hines comes up, it's like 40% chance it's going to be a home run, 40% chance he's going to strike out, and then maybe there's a 20% chance he hits a single. And so these guys are the same way. When they're in coverage, it's like they're either going to get an interception or they're giving up a touchdown. And so those are kind of the extremes and the sacrifices you have to make. And there are definitely guys out there that you would rather have at cornerback. But while they do, give up touchdowns and give up yardage, they do make big plays. And that's, the reason they're still starters at the NFL level. It's not just name. It's not just stars on their helmet. Like, they do make big plays and they do make crazy plays on the ball. They play cornerback almost like wide receivers, where they're just playing the ball so much, and you're going to get burned is the unfortunate reality of playing cornerback that way. But you do also reap the benefits of having two guys at the outside who play that way. You're going to lead the NFL in interceptions, which I think the Cowboys have done when both those guys have been healthy, or they've been up there at least.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
that's just kind of you do reap what you sow, and if you're going to play the ball aggressive, you're also going to get burned. So I don't hate the secondary. I like the Siobhan Ravel pick. I saw one guy who had him mocked as a first rounder, and that's not saying he should have been a first rounder, but I do think that having your name mocked as a first rounder and then going in the third round, there is some value there to at least be like, well, this isn't a guy who was mocked in the fifth round and they, took in the third. This is a guy who his name was up there as, a top 4, top 5 cornerback in the draft and then gets taken in the third. So he's definitely not a day one starter by any means, but could be a helpful addition to that secondary.
Yeah.
May have to be.
Yes, this
We'll
is true.
see.
Do we have a timeline on the Trevon Diggs, did you say?
It's at least 4 weeks. He's on the
miss
pup
4,
list.
like guaranteed to miss
And that's
4.
Pup is physically unable to perform?
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is something you can do in the preseason to open up an extra roster spot. It's no different than IR, but I think the difference is the player still gets paid. I think that's the difference.
Gotcha.
But don't hold me to that. From a prediction standpoint, we all have the Cowboys having winning records. Jack and Sanders have them going 10-7. I have them going 9-8. I have them one game worse just from I think defense is too large of a question mark. And like I said, for the Cowboys to win games, one of 3 things has to happen. Dak has to throw for 350 and a couple touchdowns. CD has to go for 180 yards plus, or Micah just has to dominate the game defensively. Otherwise, they're not going to be in a spot to win games. But I will say, Dak, in a season where he's played double-digit games or more, has never had a losing record, and only once did he finish 500 with an 8-8 season. So Dak, whether you like him or not, which most people don't for whatever reason, is a winning quarterback in the league and has been since he's joined the Cowboys, which the whole argument on that is it's so fascinating to me that people view Dak so lowly, yet he wins games in an organization that those same people also agree is dysfunctional and doesn't know what the hell they're doing and is making the wrong moves all the time, and yet he continues to win games and take the Cowboys to the postseason when he's under the amount of pressure that he is. I think it's the thing I love about Dak, as much as it eats at me that he has to be the Cowboys quarterback and he can't just be like the Jaguars quarterback or something, where he's not under the limelight. But yeah, you guys have them going 10-7. I have them going 9-8. They're again going to be in prime time.
Fan has them going 9-8. So we're all around that. We've all got them going 9 to 10 wins.
I think if Dak plays double-digit games, like I said, he's never not led them to a winning season. They're going to be in prime time a ton. They have such an interesting little 5 weeks, and it really you could almost stretch it out to 9 weeks where they play Monday Night Football, bye Monday Night Football, host Philly, Thanksgiving versus the Chiefs, that's going to be electric. That'll be one of the best Thanksgiving games we've seen in a while.
Sure.
Since last year's Bears-Lions game was great, but it was just because it was hilarious because they just didn't manage the clock well at the end of it. Then they'll play Thursday Night Football in Detroit, which will be a nice little revenge game for Dan Campbell once again. Sunday Night Football versus the Vikings. Host a not top 10 quarterback in Justin Herbert. And then you play Christmas football in Washington. That's just an insane little 9-week schedule, right?
Are the Commanders, is that an outdoor stadium?
Yeah.
So
it is.
fingers
It'll
crossed
be
for
chilly.
snow. Fingers crossed for snow.
Maybe. And they're playing in New York in Week 18, which could easily have snow and more than likely will at that point in the season. But a Christmas snow game in Washington, that would be really sick.
Yeah, I don't think the odds are great, but it could happen.
Yeah.
That would be really fun to see.
That's one of my... Yeah, snow games are one of my favorite. My mom loves a snow game.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is a football fan, but when there's a snow game on, it does not matter who's playing. She just she immediately becomes. And if it's the Army Navy game,
I love when we get those, especially if we can get them once or twice a season. It's great.
Yep.
Like last year's Steelers-Browns game, where the field was perfectly clean in the first quarter, and then in the third quarter, it's like it was a completely different game. You don't even recognize anything that's happening.
I hope we get it.
I hope we get stuff like that as well this season as well. It's so cool to. It's nice living down in the South and not necessarily having to deal with that for 7 days in a week.
Yep.
But it's really cool to watch it and watch them play football in it. And if you've ever played football in the snow, it's actually really fun as well. So I know it's fun for the players as well. But yes, 9-8, 10-7, 10-7. For me, that has them a game behind the Eagles and the Commanders, so not winning the division. That'll give them an outside chance at the postseason. But for us, that puts them at 10-7. That essentially locks in a playoff spot for them because our NFC North is so wonky with an 8-9, 9-8, 8-9 team. So they're going to be a wild card team, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because we also have 2 9-8 teams in the NFC South for us. So I like it. They're in the postseason for us. For you guys, it looks like they're probably going to be just outside the postseason for me. For Sanders, it looks like they're going to be in the postseason because you've got them a game higher than the Bears, Vikings, Saints, and 2 higher than the Falcons and Panthers.
Unless I just go like absolutely ham. In the
I don't
NFC
think
West,
you're going to be
but
high
I do
on the
not
NFC West.
Do not see myself going high on the NFC
Given
West.
your arguments on the quarterbacks in that division. For Jack, it'll be interesting to see how the tiebreakers play out because you got 3 teams that are 10-7 right now. But that kind of does it for Dallas. Are there any final points before we move on to what is going to be an interesting conversation, apparently?
I'm excited for the next conversation. I'll just close it off by saying I hate the Cowboys.
Yeah, okay. All right, before we start the next thing, I'm going to try it. So my computer is currently running off my hotspot, which is not great for our live stream. So I'm going to go try and fix that real quick. It should take like 30 seconds. So y'all just want to vibe.
Okay.
I mean, you could talk to each other because we are live, but you can just hang out on your phones if you want to.
Yeah,
I'll just read whatever. So Brian Kelly has been hired as the head coach at Notre Dame once again.
You see the thing of his? It was like him hugging his wife, and the baby was like.
He's one major now away from a career grand slam, joining Rory basically a year later. He'll have to win the U.S. Open next year to do so, which will be at Shinnecock Hills. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, Scotty wins the Open easily. It was a fun watch. Royal Port Rush was really good. The Open it's a good championship. Roy played well in Ireland. Are we back?
We are back.
All right.
My phone is no longer running the stream. The computer is now on actual Wi-Fi. So we should be good.
Is like the podcast and everything still going? We still recording?
Yeah, still
cool.
recording.
Just making
we can
sure.
go ahead. Yeah, preach. The next up are the New York Giants.
The New York Giants continue with Brian Dable, but they let Daniel Jones go this offseason. They trade back into the first round and select none other than Jackson Dart and not Shedeur Sanders, which was a very surprising thing. Shedeur had potentially been mocked to number 3 for the Dallas Cowboys, but not for Dallas.
Giants.
The New York
Giants.
Giants. Yeah. But they go with Jackson Dart, and they're able to get Abdul Carter in the first round as well because of that. And then they also bring in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. So the first big question for the Giants is going to be quarterback, and that's been a question for many years for them. Daniel Jones, please pull up one of my Daniel Jones graphics, has been the quarterback for now he played quarterback for 6 seasons in New York. Throughout his night when he was selected at 12th, I literally did not shut up about it at school the next day. The entire day I am just laughing, yelling, why would you take Daniel Jones? Why would you take Daniel Jones? It makes no sense. And it proved to be right for me, 24-44 for Daniel and his time in New York. And then when he was not playing, which was a few games, about nearly 20 or so, they had so many different quarterbacks that really ran through the ringer. Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets had a little 8-week stint, 6 weeks last season, and then 2 weeks this year. Drew Lock was a quarterback for 5 games. I don't even remember it, but Tyrod Taylor was a starting quarterback for them 3 years ago for 5 games. Mike Glennon, Tampa Bay Buccaneer legend, started 4 games for them. Jake Fromm, Bulldog legend,
George, yep.
started 2 games, and he was actually a part of the infamous moment where they literally took a quarterback kneel inside their own 10-yard line because they were scared to run a play in a game. Got booed by the team. Colt McCoy, horns down, started 2 games for them. And then Davis Webb from Stanford also started a game. These are all the quarterbacks since Eli Manning. So for New York and for New York Giants fans, they're looking for an answer at quarterback. And they bring in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, if you'll pull that graphic up, who last season were not necessarily great. Russell actually...
I didn't get that one put in. Apologies.
That's fine. Russell actually had a good season for me, in my opinion, especially given the cast of characters he had there in Pittsburgh. 225 yards a game. He was a 16-5 touchdown interception ratio, threw for a 95.6 passer rating, and was 6-5 in Pittsburgh, which for Pittsburgh that's how every quarterback has done. So it's not necessarily an indictment on Russell. My bet would be that Russell is going to start the season for them. But you also have Jameis Winston in-house. He threw for only 177 yards a game with the Browns last season for a 13-12 touchdown to interception ratio.
Sounds like Jameis.
Which, yes, that is just like Jameis with his previous 30-30 season that he had in Tampa Bay. Quarterback is the question. That'll be my first question I'll throw to y'all. Who starts the season? When do you expect there to be a change? Who do you expect that change to be?
Sure. First, little story time. You talked about you running around school the day after them drafting Daniel Jones. I was in a similar boat because not only did they pass up on Daniel Jones, well, they took Daniel Jones and passed up on Dwayne Haskins, which led to the Redskins getting Dwayne Haskins, now the Commanders. And I was like just so sure that they had goofed and that Dwayne Haskins was going to make them regret that for years. Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. Obviously, that didn't work out very well, but it's not like they made a better pick with Daniel Jones. But I was so giddy that night after they took Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins fell to us. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear to me that Russell Wilson's going to start the season, even just like looking at the contracts they gave Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. In terms of when they pivot, I don't want to necessarily tip our hand too early, but I don't see them having a very good season at all for reasons I can get into later. But I think that's going to lead to them having to potentially look at Jackson Dart earlier than they would want to, even if they maybe go Russell Wilson, then Jameis Winston for a couple weeks, and that doesn't work out either. And then it's like, screw it. I don't really think Brian Dable or Joe Sheen is the general manager. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think either of them really have good job security. So then I think there is let's just see what we have with the rookie, try and salvage something, and Jackson Dart ends up getting playing time before I don't know, around the midpoint of the season, week 10, week 11, something like that. But
I'm really curious to see if the season goes poorly, which we all think it will. Is Brian Dable and Joe Shane probably should still be in a ton of question, and then it's no help that he didn't re-sign Saquon, and that was all filmed on camera. But I am curious if Brian Dable is under fire and could be fired this season if they're bad, because then I don't understand, why did you bring him back for another season? Why didn't you just go and get another head coach and then let that head coach select your quarterback for the future? Now you're going to be in a spot where if you do fire Brian Dable, the next head coach who comes in is not guaranteed to like Jackson Dart as their quarterback, and now you've wasted a first-round pick on a quarterback, and you're going to just run through the cycle again, and New York still won't have an answer at quarterback, nor will they have an answer at head coach. So I hope for the Giants it is, even if they're bad this season, they continue with Brian Dable, and that's really the only way that's going to happen, I think, is if they see some promise in Jackson Dart when he does play.
Sure.
For me, I have him starting Week 9 against the San Francisco 49ers. Their schedule is brutal, so there's not really a cakewalk game where you can ease him in. But through those first 8 games, I think they're in a spot where they can win a few games here and there with Russell or Jameis. but then they go to Denver and to Philly in week 7s and 8, and they're more than likely going to get crushed in those 2 games. You come home and you can start Jackson against San Francisco. San Francisco is to fly across the country. Maybe you have a chance in that game. For me, that's where Jackson Dart gets a start for the New York Giants. But I'm just curious. If they're bad, would they actually fire Brian Dable? And if they do, it doesn't make sense to me because you're going to just put yourself in another question. For the bright spots for New York, it is the defense we think should be really, really good because of the names there, and they should be with the talent that they have. Drafting Abdul Carter, they add him to a defensive line that now has Brian Burns, who is elite, big, sexy Dexter Lawrence, who is elite, Kayvon Thibodeau, who is just he's a guy who is supposed to be really, really good but hasn't put up the numbers yet, a la Justin Herbert. You view him as a potential, but
he has put up numbers
already
kind of
3 seasons
undeniably.
Don't try and argue with him about this.
Okay,
It's not gonna
okay.
it's not gonna go well.
Bobby Okereke, who I actually think is one of the best middle linebackers in football, is there in the middle. So that front 7 is going to be really, really good and really fun to watch. I mean, you could rotate guys, and you're rotating, like if you're rotating in Abdul Carter, that's a sight to behold. And I think it'll be fun to see how will they do against the Eagles' offensive line. How will they do against now the Commanders, who have rebuilt their offensive line in the offseason? And then Dallas, are they going to be able to tear apart Dallas with their kind of weaker offensive line? The divisional games are going to be interesting to see and really see how do those quarterbacks attack this defense. Offensively, I have no faith really in anyone on that offense besides Malik Neighbors.
My goat.
And so because of that, I don't see... Yes, defense wins championships, but you still have to be able to move the ball to some degree, and I don't see how they do it because their offensive line is not good. Andrew Thomas is really the only offensive lineman who is of note. The rest of them had sub-64 PFF grades last season. Their running back room is not necessarily great. Tyron Tracy had some bright spots, but Tyron Tracy to me had bright spots because people knew him in fantasy because he was putting up fantasy numbers. But he's putting up fantasy numbers because someone has to put up fantasy numbers for the New York Giants. And someone has to move the ball. That's kind of how the NFL works. It's like in the NBA, like someone's got to score points for the Charlotte Hornets. That doesn't necessarily mean LaMelo Ball is great or Brandon Miller is great. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
And it felt like that for me for Tyrone Tracy last season. Cam Scatterbo was drafted by them, and people obviously are excited to see him and see how he carries the ball. And the New York fans are going to love Cam Scatterbo.
He's a character. He's got good energy, too.
Yep. But their receiver weapons, they're really unchanged outside of Malik Neighbors. They still have Darius Slayton there. Wan'Dale Robinson is still there. Jalen Hyatt, who was supposed to be a superstar and had that infamous clip of him telling a coach that he's stupid for not, being high on Jalen Hyatt, is still there, and he'll be like the 6th strength wide receiver. And then tight end, they have no options for me. Theo Johnson is only a name because of fantasy football, and like I said, it's only a name because someone has to score points at tight end, and there's really only 10 or so tight ends that can actually score points. So Theo Johnson starts on a ton of teams in a 16-team league. So that's the only reason anyone really knows that name, in my opinion. They also drafted Darius Alexander, who Jack is, of course, really, really high on.
Cap.
Not at all. He hated his tape. And
Look, I'm not saying he can't be a fine player. Out of all the people assigned to me, he had easily the most boring tape. Just nothing really popped from the film. A lot of I'm big, I clog lane, which can have use. But
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing to have from a defensive tackle. It's just not a lot of fun to watch 8 minutes of that.
Especially when they play for Toledo. So I'm
Yeah.
watching it against like southeast west Idaho. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that is fair. Continue, JP.
But he's good at his skill. I think will be used well because he doesn't have to be the elite guy in that defensive line. They grabbed Paulson Adebo from the Saints. who was hurt for parts of last season but was our best corner in New Orleans. And they also bring in Javon Holland from the Dolphins. Defense, like I said, should be good, but I'll throw it to y'all on this. I don't trust the offense and really anyone outside of Malik, and I definitely don't trust the quarterbacks there. I'm not high on Jameis. I'm not high on Russell. I'm damn sure ain't high on Jackson Dart. And so I just don't know how they're going to score points, even if they hold teams to 17. Like, how are they going to score 18 points? Because you have to do that to win a game.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that I trust Jameis. Well, okay, first of all, I'll say this. I would rather start Jameis Winston over Russell Wilson.
Okay.
And part of that is just the thrill factor of watching Jameis Winston play football.
Fair.
It is
Sure.
more exciting to me than watching Russell Wilson play football, especially current age Russell Wilson, where he's kind of lost. Young Russell Wilson had some of that, not necessarily Kyler Murray to him, but the scamper. He had a lot of scamper to his game.
He was elite at that.
Exactly.
He was Patrick Mahomes at that before
Yes,
Mahomes was
correct. So he was terrifying in broken down plays where he's outside the pocket and you don't know what he's going to do. As a defense, he was terrifying. I don't think he's at that same level, and I don't think he has the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers to his game.
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees, yeah, to kind of just stand there and dice up defenses. So that's I'm not high on current Russell Wilson, and so I would rather see Jameis Winston out there for the fun factor. Also, because I think it's what Malik Neighbors wants. There were rumors that he was prolonging his injury and or tanking. No, what was it? What was it? Did y'all see the tweets?
No, I didn't.
I think it was he went sicko mode in a game so that they would win and couldn't draft a good quarterback. And the rumor, like the Twitter theories were that he went sicko mode so that they would have to sign Jameis Winston because they couldn't draft the first Cam Ward or something.
What's his love affair with Jameis Winston?
Jameis Winston's just going to do nothing but throw him the ball.
Oh,
and
he can get
exactly. Jameis Winston's just going to throw him the ball like 20 times a game, and he's going to break the receiver.
As a dynasty owner of Malik Neighbors, I'm not too opposed to that.
I mean,
he's gonna get his targets. He's gonna get his yards.
There
he's
was
gonna get his
a
touchdown.
point in the season where I think I texted in the chat that I was like, Malik Neighbors might break the reception record because he was averaging 9 to 10 catches a game.
Getting 17 targets a night.
And so Jameis is going to give him 23, and he will break the reception record.
He's got to stay healthy, man.
I trust Jameis Winston to put up, and Jameis Winston and Malik Neighbors, and then to a lesser extent, Darius Slayton is not a terrible second or third option. He's by no means elite, and there are other better second or third options to have, but I mean, at a time he got a shot as the number one wide receiver and it didn't work out. But I'm not gonna praise Darius Slayton. But I think that offense, at least with Jameis Winston at quarterback and then Malik Neighbors is the wide receiver one, and then some other options out there, I think they can put up some points. I don't think they're gonna be able to do that consistently, but I think it's gonna lead to them winning a couple games. We can get into record predictions, but I think that they're gonna win some games because Jameis Winston and Malik Neighbors just go insane for a game. And then on that defensive side of the ball, I do think that they're going to be able to hold teams to 18. That defensive line is, as far as units go in the NFL, one of the best units you have. You've got Dexter Lawrence, you've got Brian Burns, who I don't know how he was last year, but there was 2 years ago in Carolina was offered 3 first-round picks by the Los Angeles Rams for Brian Burns because he was young and productive. And I don't think he had quite the same season his last year in Carolina before he was traded to New York, but you've got those two guys, and then you draft Darius Alexander in the 3rd round. You also still have Kevon Thibodeau. Is that right? Did I say that right? Yeah. So is he on the?
He's probably way down there because they're so stacked.
Yeah, and then you've also still got there he is.
We drafted Abdul Carter as well.
This has got him listed as the backup behind Abdul Carter. So that defensive line could be insane.
Tracy Ford as well, man. I mean, that's just play right there.
Darwin Nunez Roches as well.
What was the game with Houston again?
He was in Weddle.
That's right.
Hard mode.
That's right.
Yeah.
We did not get him.
Yeah, I've never.
He hadn't been in the league for 10 years or something
exactly,
like
that. Too. He'd been
Shout out to
on
him.
the Chiefs for 5 seasons, and I had never heard this guy's name. And I
think he has
all the Chiefs games.
8 sacks across his 10 years, something like that. 30 snaps.
I would say I don't understand the trust of Jameis and Malik Neighbors to be productive
I'm not trusting them to be productive every game. I'm trusting them to be productive
for
in like
how
a
many
third,
for how many games?
At least a third to a half of the games. I trust.
But I
them.
think
6 games? You think they're good enough to win 6 games because of Jameis and Malik?
I'm not saying they're good enough to win 6 games. I'm saying they're good enough to be productive in 6 games. There's a difference.
I think my worry there is
Competitive in 6 games.
you get the ceiling with Jameis, right? He may get you some more passing yards or some more big plays, but then when he has a game he throws 3 picks, who cares? He threw for 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns when he gifted the game away. Because your defense, if you can honestly just play the field position game and just keep pinning teams back and back, but then when Jameis is 1st and 10 on his own 25-yard line and throws an ill-advised ball and the ball hawks that the Cowboys have take it away, and suddenly Dak has to drive his team 20 yards down the field to score, then it suddenly gets a little more iffy for the defense.
I've got them being competitive in like 6 to 8 games. I do not have them. I have them winning a lot less than that. But I've got that offense being clicking in 6 to 8 games to be competitive.
I just don't trust the defense to be necessarily good enough throughout and perfect. They really have to be perfect for
Sure.
4 quarters to put them in a spot to win games. And I think, the guys on the defensive line are really good. They're great pass rushers, great at getting to the quarterback. How many times do you rush the passer when you're down 14 points? Once a possession, because they're running the ball at that point. They're trying to burn clock on the other side. And I think that's going to hurt the defensive line more than it will help them. So that's where I get to the point of I don't trust then the offense to go score on their first drive to put them in the spot where we're in the third quarter and it's a 3-point game and it's 3rd and 7 and Abdul Carter can tee off on the quarterback and Brian Burns can tee off. I just don't see them getting into that spot even 6 times. I don't even see it 3 times necessarily. It's just, I think this is a team that bring it to December, maybe they're in that spot or more, because that is, you watch a New York football game in December, that's how those games are played out. They're played out slugfesty, 17-10, stuff like that, 21-14. They're really low scoring. And so I think that can help them as they get deep into the season. But at that point, as we are going to predict, like they would be spiraling, and I don't think there's a ton of trust for them to even win a game at that point in the season. Go ahead.
I agree. I also think talking about trusting their offense, I know you've touched on it, JP, but I don't think we've really hammered how bad the offensive line has been in recent years, and the lack that in my opinion, the lack of, I guess, focus they put on improving that this offseason. It's largely the same group, no?
Yeah.
And a group that's just
they're returning
underperformed.
5 guys from in-house.
Yep. And so it's another thing that, like, if I'm gonna want Jameis to try and make plays or Russell Wilson to try and make plays, Russell Wilson's no longer the scrambler. We're gonna need a clean pocket, and I don't necessarily think that's gonna be there that often this year, or often enough to put together drives and whatnot and get down the field to score.
I told Jack this we were talking earlier this afternoon doing podcast prep. The Giants are in a weird position because the administration that's there now, they drafted Jackson. These are their guys. This is what, year 3 of Dabble? Brian Dabble?
Brian Dable.
Dable, sorry.
And yes, it's year 3.
And so, this is kind of another bad year. Would not bode well for his. That we're looking at. Is he on the hot seat after? Is he gone after?
He was on the hot seat last season, and that's where
doesn't make sense. They brought him back.
Talking about later, why did you earlier? Why did you bring him back?
Right.
If you were gonna be bad this season, but I would counter my own point by saying they don't think they're gonna be bad this season. And
right.
That's the way they have approached the offseason. We don't bring in guys like Paulson Adebo, and you don't bring in quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Jameis if the plan was also to draft a quarterback.
Definitely
just
not both.
Have him start. So they think they're going to be good this season.
Yeah.
And we don't see that, obviously.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people see that.
What I said to Jack was, if this was Madden, or if I knew that I was going to be in the building next year, I would just be biting the bullet and recognize that this roster is not good enough on the offensive line or potentially in the secondary to win. I would just be tanking. I'd be going, but what I would be tanking and then trying to trade out of that pick. Like I just don't think this roster is good enough. But Dable can't just accept that this roster is bad and lose games. Because if he loses game, he's.
I don't think they'll do that though.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
They're not
well,
going
he can't.
to. It's also a thing of
they can't afford to just lose games because this is his roster. These are his guys.
And I don't think they should do that. They're
not that far off, to be honest.
Lower than we should be, but I think a large part of why we're so low, which I'll reveal now. I have them going 3-14. Sanders has them going 2-15, and Jack has them going 1-16. And it's large in part because they are not favored in a single game next season.
The schedule is
brutal.
It's unreal.
And they play, obviously, Washington, Dallas, and Philly 6 times. That's 6 games. The NFC West having to play, not the NFC West, the AFC West having to play Denver, Kansas City, Las Vegas, and the Chargers. Really tough division. Having to play the NFC North, which people view as the toughest division in football. Having to play the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. That's not an easy game. I don't care who is starting at quarterback. So the schedule is absolutely brutal. There's no layups there. But I think we're still even too low on them because I think they're going to be in a spot where they're going to win more games than they should. Now, their preseason win total is 5.5, so even Vegas kind of views them higher than we do, which, again, 5.5 doesn't make sense to me if they're not favored in a single game next season. So that may be something you want to bet on is under 5.5 next season.
I think the hard thing was I agree. I have them going 2-15. I think the Giants are going to win more than 2 games, but I can't look at this schedule and decide what those games are going to be. It's. I mean, I don't know if you have.
I'm in the exact same boat.
Yeah,
I think like 1-16.
I don't think you think they're only going to win.
They're gonna win more than one game, but trying to find a spot on the schedule to even like give them a win is tough because JP already laid it out, and then you even look. The weaker teams they play. Well, I mean, I think New England's going to be improved, but you also have to go to New England, right?
Yeah.
The Raiders, some people are iffy on them. You have to go to Las Vegas. So even like the easier teams you
and
play.
New Orleans, like JP said.
Yeah, you have to go to them. You don't get them at home, which makes it tough.
At Chicago.
Mm-hmm. We did just spend a lot of time dogging on the roster. I do actually think they have a lot of pieces that are really good, and it's close to being a good team. The schedule just is going to leave no room for error, and I don't think they're good enough to overcome that.
Yeah. And then, I've got them going 2-15. I gave them an upset over San Francisco at home.
Everything's an upset, apparently.
Yeah. And then, I guess, technically an upset at Las Vegas. I'm very low on the Raiders, and they're going to dog.
I thought Geno Smith was your guy, but that was a huge move.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know what to do, how to pick 4 other games. It really is just going to be, does the defense, like JP said, does the defense show up and do they get like 6 sacks in a game or 5-6 sacks in a game? Do they just absolutely hound the quarterback? Does Malik Neighbors and Jameis Winston or whoever's throwing the ball, does Malik Neighbors go off for 150 and 2 touchdowns? And the 3, 4, 5, 6 games where those stars all align, they're going to get 4 or 5 wins.
They just got to make sure they win some of those games that they're in when this happen.
And it's just, I can't look at the schedule and be like, oh, yeah, I really trust the Giants defense to play perfect against the Commanders offense. I really trust the defense to play perfect against the Kansas City Chiefs. Or I trust the offense to go off for 30 points against the Eagles defense. I can't pick those things. They're going to happen. It's going to happen. I just can't pick that. That's why I've got them going 2-15.
Sure. That kind of closes out New York. We're low on them. All of us are low on them. As a group, we have them going 1-16. Go ahead.
Also, I hate the Giants.
Okay, well said. Very well said. But that'll get us into our next.
You won't find analysis like that anywhere else.
No, I don't disagree. I hate the Falcons.
This is my division, man.
All right. Philadelphia Eagles.
I'll go and get it out early. I hate the Eagles.
Well said.
Thank you.
All right, cool. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. They are Super Bowl champions. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs in resounding fashion. Going into this season, they've got some questions. They bring in a new offensive coordinator after their previous offensive coordinator left for Kellen Moore, left for the New Orleans Saints. And they also return. They don't add any new pieces on defense, but let's start on defense because I think that's the most interesting place. The Philadelphia Eagles, over the last probably 5 years, have been the example of, I would say, the example of roster building. And they've benefited a lot. They've hit on a lot of guys that they've drafted, but the Philadelphia Eagles
scouting well.
Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles have been able to continue this approach of when they realize a guy is either close to being unpayable, like they're going to have to let him walk, or close to retirement, they draft his replacement a year or two ahead of that exit, however that exit's going to go. It's retirement or free agency. And then that replacement steps up and has played well. That's Cam Jurgens. That's some other guys in the secondary like Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. It's Jalen Hurts. I mean, they drafted him as a potential replacement to Carson Wentz in the second round, and then Carson Wentz has a bad year. Hurts comes in, wins some games, and now 2-3 years later has won a Super Bowl.
Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
Fletcher Cox.
Yep. And legend. So this year they're in the exact same situation. They've had some guys retire and leave in free agency. And on defense, they replaced Milton Williams with Moro Ajomo. I don't know if I said that right. They replaced Josh Sweat with Jalix Hunt. They replaced Darius Slay with Keely Ringo and
Ringo was already a team, but
he wasn't
really
starter.
playing tons.
He was not a starter.
He gets an increased role.
And then C.J. Gardner-Johnson also, they replaced, I believe, 5 starters with 5 guys who were in the building last year, but the 5 guys who were not starters. And so my question is, are those 5 pieces going to be able to step in and play at the same level? Are we going to see the same number 1 defense in opponent yards per game and points per game, or are we going to see a step back under the same defensive coordinator?
I think it's going to be interesting. The defenses, I think it should be good again because they have really good pieces. A big question for them is kind of a youth perspective. I think bringing back Zach Bond helps that a ton, being kind of a veteran and leader in that locker room, because outside of that, really Reed Blankenship is the only guy you could look to for veteran help. All of these guys are super young. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Sidney Brown, Keely Ringo, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith Jr., Nakobe Dean even. All of these guys are on their first contract. They're not even on their second contract. They're on their rookie contract. So I think veteran leadership is where you get into a spot of maybe that's a question. Where I think they're fine there is in Nick Sirianni being a leader in that locker room and really kind of being a dog and really trusting his defense and trusting his players a ton. I think it gives them, and it gave them last season, the ability to play with a ton of confidence. And then again, they crushed the draft by just taking the best player available when he falls to him. Jahad Campbell falls to them. Andrew Mbaku, I think, is going to be Makuba. I don't know why I said Mbaku. That's not even close to how you would pronounce that.
That's the guy from Black Panther. Mbaku, right?
I hope you're right. It's not. That's a tough look.
That's the guy.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Who?
Makuba?
Yeah, Andrew Makuba.
Andrew Makuba, formerly of Clemson from Horns Down, joins them. Second round pick. I think he's actually going to be very good for them as well. They also added Smell Munden Jr. from Georgia. Another Georgia defender joins the Eagles defense. I think the defense is going to be really good again. My question is, like I said, veteran leadership. How are they going to respond when they're kind of getting torn apart? How are they going to respond when things aren't going good? How are they going to respond when Nick Sirianni inevitably says something stupid or makes fun of a fan in the stands for no reason? Are they going to be able to respond when Jalen Hurts has a bad game? What if Saquon gets hurt? With the diva ship with A.J. Brown, Starkville legend, it'll be, I think it's a question, does their defense kind of respond to that? And then how does their defense play against really good quarterbacks this season? They're going to play Kansas City and the Patrick Mahomes. They'll play Dak Prescott twice. They're going to play Jaden Daniels, who played really well against them in one game and kind of struggled in Thursday Night Football against them in the other. They'll play Jared Goff and that Detroit offense. They're going to play Mike McCarthy, Minnesota and JJ McCarthy, and that offense, Denver and Bo Nix, they have to play. Like, that's not an easy one.
Heisman candidate Bo Nix. This is probably the year.
Yeah, we'll see. People are really high on Justin Herbert for whatever reason, and they have to play him. Geno Smith, who I'm actually high on, but Sanders isn't. They have to play, but then also they have to play at Buffalo at the end of the season. So I think defensively, they're going to be put in tough spots playing at Kansas City. I didn't even mention Baker Mayfield, who has torn apart the Eagles in previous games against them. It's just, I think they're in tough spots, which is for me why I think they take a step back this season. On top of the, like I mentioned earlier in the Cowboys video, which is now being mentioned here, there hasn't been a repeat champion in the NFC East since 2004. And the Eagles are favored to win this division, and they have every right to be, but they have to go out there and do it. And that has kind of been the story of Philly, is they've gone into seasons with talented rosters. They've always had talented rosters. They've always had guys, but they haven't won the games they were supposed to, or something stupid happened, or Carson Wentz just didn't play well coming off the injury, or Nick Foles wasn't as good as you wanted him to be. Or Jalen, the year prior to last season, was just not great, and they were a 9-7 team. That's where I push back, and that's my question on the Eagles. Is there? I don't just see them as a consistent force again, because I just have too many questions about leadership in there, and then there's their tough schedule. I didn't even mention they're playing in Green Bay. And there's just a tough game every single week, and that's going to be the NFC East this season. There's just going to be tough spots where they have to respond week after week, and I just wonder if that's something they're going to be able to do once again.
Sure. Yeah. As far as the defense goes, it's kind of one of those things where I don't think any front office has figured out talent analysis, because you're always going to make mistakes. But the Eagles have done it so consistently over the last 3-4 years that I don't want to bet against them.
I feel like the OKC Thunder in that way, to be honest. Like,
it's one of those
that
things
draft
where
pick's probably going to work.
Yeah, where eventually they're going to miss, but I'm not going to be the one that bets that they missed. And so that's kind of why I'm assuming that the defense is going to continue to be talented and continue to start guys who are NFL starters, and they're not going to miss. And they continue to do it. They spent two draft picks in the first 2 rounds and 3 in the first 4 rounds on defense. They spent 10 total draft picks. Like, they drafted 10 guys this year in 7 rounds, which is up there as far as like NFL teams go. So as far as leadership goes, like you said, it goes back to the head coach, and Sirianni has I think he's done a good job of leading that team. I trust the leadership there. And then on offense, I think offense is also going to be interesting, because offense isn't a talent issue. Offense is not a coaching issue, a coaching question mark. What is that offense going to look like with Kellen Moore gone and a new offensive coordinator in the building, and then once again 11 starters who were in the building last year, because that's just what the Eagles do. I'll be interested to see what the offense looks like, not from a leadership, because they've got the experience there. They've got Jalen Hurts, they've got A.J. Brown, they've got Devontae Smith going into year 4, 5? Year
4 or 5.
4 or 5, yeah, somewhere up there.
I think it's 4.
Dallas Goedert coming back, Saquon Barkley in year 2. It's going to be, theirs is not going to be a leadership issue. The offense is going to be is the new offensive coordinator, who I had his name written somewhere, is he the guy
Kevin Patullo?
Yes, thank you. Kevin Patullo. Is he the guy for the job to repeat a top 10 offense from last year?
I think offensively it is, and I don't want to, I feel kind of weird having the take, and I don't feel great about it, because it just doesn't feel like I'm really even saying much. But my question is just health. We've seen that in the NBA out of recent, but we've also seen in the NFL where season to season, you really never have a consistent season from a health perspective, unless you're the New Orleans Saints, where every season everybody's just hurt. And the Eagles were really lucky in terms of a health perspective last season. To get a full healthy season out of Saquon Barkley, has not been something that has happened besides once in
Right.
New York. To get a full healthy season out of Jalen Hurts helped them win as many games as they did because he is a great quarterback when he gets to play, and really only had one tough spot where Kenny Pickett has to come in. A.J. Brown, the same question. Devontae Smith, the same question. At tight end with Dallas Goedert, that's under question. Offensive line, I think, is a huge one, too, with how much they rely on that offensive line with the tush push and running the ball as much as they did last season. Does Lane Johnson, at this age, continue to stay healthy? Landon Dickerson has gotten hurt many times before. Does Cam Jurgens stay healthy, being the center leading the tush push? And Jordan Mailata as well. They've got enough pieces there, I think, that if they lose one here and there, they're going to be fine. But I'm really concerned that the injury luck just won't be there, and that's part of me also being lower on them this season, because another season you practiced 2 weeks longer than two other teams. You practiced 3 weeks longer than 4 other teams. You practiced 4 weeks longer than 4 other teams, and you practiced 5-6 weeks longer than the rest of the league. That's more weeks. That's more wear and tear on your body. Then you went out and celebrated a Super Bowl. You started your offseason program 2 weeks later. Maybe you're just not right in the health spot for this season. I have concerns about that in Philly with the way that they like to play football, which is fast, hard-nosed, run through you, explosive plays over the top. Are they going to be able to do that and stay healthy again this season?
I mean, it's a fair question. I can't answer. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see for sure. I think the pushback, that's an argument you can make for any team, is to be like, well, if all their good players get hurt, they're going to be bad. And the Eagles,
I think it's the Super Bowl thing, playing that deep into the season, and then they didn't really give anyone ever a week off besides Saquon in the last week of the season.
And Jalen in the Super Bowl when they brought in Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett.
True.
Who they lost to free agent. That's a big loss. He was a big part of that win.
Small hands, baby hands,
2 gloves as well.
2 gloves, yeah.
So
I think that plays a hard part of it, and I also you look at their players as well. You have injury concerns for Saquon Barkley, like you have to. He's got hurt many times in New York, tore his ACL in New York, and with how much he ran last season, that's going to be a question again. He's the engine of the offense again. Jalen has had questions with his injuries because he'll take a few hits here and there that he doesn't need to. I just think injury luck won't be with them this year as much as it was last year.
yeah,
Fair.
and that makes a lot of sense.
That reflects. That's why I'm as low as I am.
Yeah.
From them from a prediction
So
standpoint.
on the record prediction, we all have them winning double-digit games. I am the highest on them. I've got them going 13-4. Jack is the second highest. Well, our fan has the second highest, having them go 12-5. Jack is sitting at 11-6, and JP is at 10-7. As a podcast, we've got them going 12-5, which I believe is good enough for first. Is that correct? Potential, or is it the?
No, it's not good enough.
Okay, okay, we got the Commanders. Okay, cool. So it's. I think the schedule. I mean, we get a really cool rematch in Week 2 against Kansas City, which I do have them winning. The two of y'all do not, and then later on, I've got them lose. We all three have them losing at Dallas, and then I think the really interesting thing is going to be week 16, 17, and 18. They play at Washington, at Buffalo, and then Washington at home. And I think those last 2 to 3 weeks or 1 to 2, maybe 3 weeks, are going to come down to what are the standings in the NFC looking like.
Yeah.
What does the NFC East look like? Does Washington take a step back, and are they a couple games behind the Eagles? Do the Cowboys get another unhealthy season from Dak Prescott, and are they a couple games behind the Eagles? And now are the Eagles able to maybe take a loss in 1 or 2 of those weeks and rest Jalen Hurts and rest Saquon Barkley and rest that offensive line? I think those last 2, I have them losing 2 out of the last 3, in part just because it's a really tough 2 out of 3 weeks. But we could also just see that the Eagles are resting starters as early as week. I believe, did they rest starters in week 17?
Yeah, I think so.
I think
Sure.
that's right. So they had an early start on the rest this last season. Are we going to see them do that again this season?
It's very possible. I don't think so, just because of how I view Washington, and the fact that you have to play Washington twice in the last 2 weeks really leaves it pretty wide open, unless you really do just kind of blow Washington out of the water. But if it's a close division, you can't take the gas off the brakes until kind of the last week of the season. I'm going 11-6 just because it's such a tough schedule in my eyes, and I do think they're a really good team. But maybe some of the closer games they won last year, don't break their way this year, and so they drop a couple more games. But they'll be a team that no one's going to want to see in the playoffs when they get there. No one's going to want to see them in the regular season. They're going to be, as they have in the past couple years, a tough team to kind of score the ball on, and a tough team to stop on the ground. So
yeah, and it'll also be, you talk about that, viewing Washington very highly. It could be a situation where, the NFC East is decided in Week 16.
Yeah,
where whoever wins that game, depending on what the standings are currently, creates a lead large enough that weeks 17 and 18 are kind of irrelevant to the NFC East standings. And it may still matter as far as, seeds 1 through 4 or the wild card seeds go. But the NFC East, I would be interested to see if that's decided in week 16. That's just it's a tough schedule, but it's as far as drama goes, this is a pretty exciting schedule.
100%.
To be able to see this 2 out of 3 weeks with Washington and then Buffalo on the road. So I'm super excited to see that. JP's got them going 10-7. You almost have them alternating through the first 6 weeks. You've got them going win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win.
Doesn't have a longer than a 2-game win streak in there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's really interesting. JP, you want to talk about your predictions?
I think for me, it's a consistency thing because of the defense, and I wonder how they play on a week-to-week basis. Are they able to play at a high level? And then they're playing tough teams, tough quarterbacks. I expect them to win the Dallas game because it's the opening night. It'll be the first game of the season. The crowd's going to be electric. I just don't expect Dallas and Schottenheimer to play well in that first one. And then I don't expect them to win at Kansas City, in large part because of Kansas City's schedule and where they're going to be in a tough 7 to 8 weeks to start the season. So they're going to treat that game very, very seriously, more than they would potentially in years past. Tampa Bay is a team they've struggled with historically. And then I have them losing that New York game as kind of just an upset game. I just question consistency. I question health from a week-to-week basis. The health, which I know I've talked a ton about, it's not necessarily that like guys are going to have season-ending injuries, but what if A.J. Brown misses 3 weeks? Jalen Hurts misses 2 weeks, or Saquon misses 3 weeks. Saquon's the Madden cover, so he's due for something bad to happen this season. That's kind of how that works.
Curse exists for sure.
So I think of Christian McCaffrey last season. He was the first pick in fantasy football and barely played, which is a large part and reason that guys who drafted Christian McCaffrey did not do well last season in fantasy.
Tough for me.
I think it's just it's a schedule thing too. Those are tough games. Winning at Kansas City is not easy. Winning at Tampa Bay is not easy. Winning in New York on a short week is not necessarily going to be easy. Lambeau at Dallas is a game they've struggled with.
Lambeau's pretty easy to win if you're Aston Sanders. So
yeah, apparently 1-7 at Lambeau. Lambeau is not a tough place to play, especially not on Monday Night Football. But it's inconsistency for me, and it's in large part because that is how Philly is. They are an inconsistent franchise. They're really, really, really good one season, and then the next season they're kind of mediocre for whatever reason, and something's not clicking, and the quarterback isn't playing the right way. And then they come back the next season, and they win the Super Bowl. Think of the last 3 years. In the Super Bowl, really good. Jalen Hurts plays great in the Super Bowl. Last season, what the hell is going on? Why are we losing games losing to Drew Lock on Monday Night Football? Like, it's unacceptable, those kinds of losses. And then you show up for the playoff game against the Buccaneers and it looks like you refuse to even compete. And then last season, they're elite throughout the entire year. So I just see it as, all right, it's the next step in the process. They won't be as good this season as they have been in past, which I'm sure won't get any pushback if we were to post a TikTok out of that. But yeah, I have them at 10-7. I do want to say good on y'all. While y'all are higher on the Eagles, you don't have them winning the division, which is true. Part of the course, the NFC East hasn't had a repeat champion since 2004. And yeah, the Eagles they're going to be good again this year because I mean there's just so much talent on that roster for them to not win games. They're really the only thing that could hold them back is, like I said, health. The schedule's really tough, and Nick Sirianni, he's a wild card. And while he is all he's done is win, he is a wild card, especially in that franchise, and then with the fan base too. You may go to some of these home games and you're actually on a road game because the team hates you for whatever reason. So Eagles at 10-7, we have them finishing 12-5 as a group, which would have them squarely in the playoffs, but behind Washington, which we can now get into as our final team. Unless there's some final thoughts on the Eagles.
Nope.
Jack, you want to reiterate your thoughts from earlier?
I guess, I mean, I hate the Eagles, and I also just kind of hate Philadelphia sports fans because I'm a Commanders fan and also Braves fan, so there's a lot of crossover there. But
I will say this: I don't necessarily hate the Eagles. I don't hate the Eagles. I do dislike one particularly Eagles fan, and it's Dawn Staley. And the only reason I
didn't know she was an
dislike
Eagles
her.
fan.
Yes, she is an Eagles fan, and I remember this because in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl, that was February, and so she was running through the hotel she was at for an away game screaming, "The Fly, Eagles Fly," like screaming that, and then a month later they beat Mississippi State in the Women's Basketball National Championship. And so that just like, I was like, and then, they on the national broadcast, they're talking about Dawn Staley. Oh, a month ago, her team won the Super Bowl. She wears like Eagles jackets and stuff to games all the time.
Yeah.
She's a huge Eagles fan. And so I was just like, man, I don't like her because she just beat us, which means I don't like the Eagles. So I'm kind of in the same boat of, I have nothing against the Eagles. Y'all just have a fan. I don't
Pretty easy bunch to hate, in my opinion.
Because she outcoached us and beat us.
So, well,
Okay.
guys, we're about to enter rarefied air. This is about to be the one and only team preview I kick off for us. Weird, I don't know. But it's my Commanders, Washington Commanders. Shocked to be in the position I'm in today where I'm excited about a Commander season because it's been a rough life for me as a Commanders fan. But yeah, Jaden Daniels comes in last year, burst onto the scene. We rip off our first playoff appearance in a couple years since the Taylor Heineke year, I believe. Where he started in the game against the Buccaneers in the playoffs.
He had one of the greater playoff plays I've ever seen.
The dive for the pylon.
Yeah,
that was sick. Actually, I was watching earlier today because it came up. It was top 5 Taylor Heineke plays as the Commander.
And
of course, I had to watch that. That was number 1.
Okay, of course.
Yeah. The other ones were like low-key. I was like, okay, you threw a 55-yard touchdown pass, but that was into triple coverage, and like, there's no way that should have worked. But that kind of was the Taylor Heineke experience.
That was how he worked.
And it was fun because low expectations. But then not only do we make the playoffs last year, but we go on a run to the NFC Championship game, stun the Detroit Lions, kind of whip their tails. Not kind of, we legitimately did. It was bad. I was in disbelief. Before falling to the Eagles, last year, as good as we were definitely were a team with some holes, which I'll get into in a second. I mean, the run defense was pretty poor. Mm-hmm. We just weren't the most physical team overall on defense, something we look to address this offseason. But another thing I realized when doing research, I just want to toss this out there early on because it kind of stunned me. We have the oldest average roster age in the NFL, which, seeing the fact we're kind of a young team in the sense of like we're new to contending, that just doesn't really seem to be the case. But we've actually made kind of a living / a resurgence off getting guys like Zach Ertz on the tail end of their career, guys like Bobby Wagner, guys that still have some juice left in them, but definitely on the tail end. We've kind of brought them in, let them lead this group, give us the last bit of football they have, and we've really capitalized on that. And I think
Even
it's been
a 25-year-old rookie in Jaden Daniels. Not that he's old by any means, but
sure.
He's not your typical rookie. He's not bringing the average down by any means.
But stuff like that has been huge for leadership and just kind of been a 180 in the culture we've became accustomed to under Dan Snyder. His rendition of the Commanders where it's just toxic, just reports kind of left and right about him doing sleazy things. So that's been something I've really appreciated. In terms of off-season additions, do you mind going to the spreadsheet when you get a chance?
Yeah.
JP. The one thing I'm worried about going to next season, so we added Von Miller. We traded for Laremy Tunsil. We traded for Deebo Samuel. I like the Laremy Tunsil piece because in this division we're in, you have to have a stout offensive line to win games. You're going to play Micah Parsons. You're going to play that great defensive line we talked about with the Giants. And then the Eagles, same thing, great defensive line. So we trade for him to look to shore stuff up. Jonathan Jones, sign him for the secondary. We just recently signed Von Miller to kind of bolster a pass rush that was not good last year. Mm-hmm. And not only was it not good, but we lost our leading sack guy to the Cowboys in Fowler.
Dante Fowler.
Fowler, thank you. So we bring in an old Von Miller, kind of that other thing I just talked about, right? We find an old guy, hope he has some football juice left, kind of give him one last hurrah. He can ride off into the sunset, play a couple more years of good football. Then we bring in Deebo Samuel, who kind of honestly feels like he maybe is already in that same stretch. I get he's a little bit younger, right? But a bit of a down year. He's getting older. People are worried, has he lost a step? I saw the play of him. They were like, oh, he looks chubby. He can't run. I don't know if y'all saw that online or not. It was him. It was like a routine pass. No one's even guarding him. He just wasn't running it out. But people were like, man, he looks thick. He looks overweight. I'm not being the most concise here, but I'm going to go and throw out a first question before I spiral too much. Oldest roster in the NFL, is there any worry that comes back to bite them this year as those old guys look to have to give another year of production at that same level and hopefully stay healthy, which is a concern for older guys?
Sanders, you want it?
That's a tough question for me to answer because I kind of feel like I answered it when I made my Pittsburgh Steelers picks because I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers have done made some comparable choices, bringing in an Aaron Rodgers, bringing in a Jalen Ramsey, bringing in not a DK Metcalf is not old, but he's probably late 20s, like 29, 30, probably drafted in 2018, 2019, I believe.
I don't think he's any older than 26, sir.
Really? All right, well, JP, you can look that up, and I'm going to talk.
It's 27.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, 28, 29, 27. Close enough.
30.
Yeah.
31.
Just specifically, though, on that defense with Cameron, who's the Pittsburgh Steelers interior defensive
Cam Hayward.
Thank you, Cam Hayward. I feel like I kind of made those picks, and I was like, oh, I don't see the old players and the experience working out for the Steelers, and I look at the Commanders team, and I don't want to be contradictory. And so I'm trying to think of a way that I can say it's going to work out for y'all.
We'll just be like Jayden Daniels is a top 7 QB in the league, and
I'm just going to be contradictory and say I don't see it backfiring unless all of your experience. True, this is true. I have them with the best record out of the three of us, I believe. I don't see it backfiring unless you run into the issue of all of your experience hitting a wall and aging out at the same time. So you see Zach Ertz. You run into the unfortunate situation where Zach Ertz and Von Miller and Bobby Wagner and Marshawn Lattimore all kind of, you see that age show up this season. And then all of a sudden your best attribute is now also your biggest weakness, where it's, well, now my Marshawn Lattimore just can't hang with guys like CeeDee Lamb or A.J. Brown or the Giants wide receiver. Malik
Neighbors.
Thank you, Malik Neighbors. I just forget names. Now your best cornerback can't hang with the wide receivers he's supposed to be guarding, and now Bobby Wagner can't guard Dallas Goedert. So I think that's the only way I see it backfiring is if your biggest strength in that experience and that maturity also becomes your biggest weakness.
Sure.
I really like that point. I think it's a good point. I'm a semi-professional gambler. And so I am really big on the law of averages. And so for me, my concern with these moves is, like you said, they continue to do this where they bring in these aging veterans. I'm concerned if it will work again. Does it just continue to work with guys like Laremy Tunsil and Deebo Samuel and Von Miller? I'm just curious if it will work again. And I think Sanders makes a great point with, yes, these are great names and they're aging, but does their age show this season? We'll see if that happens. Offensive line, I think, is going to be under question. Sam Cosmi, tore his ACL late in the season, so he's not going to play for much of the season. So the interior of the offensive line is not necessarily really good. Laramie Tunsil, and then they're probably going to start Josh Connerly.
That's my guess. I don't know.
Or they'll start Andrew Wiley. We'll see.
I don't know how you can spend a first round. It was a late first round pick. I feel like when your offensive line, like offensive line was a need that needed to be addressed. I don't know how you can spend a first round pick on a need like that and then not start him.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll start him. I will say, of course, I'm blanking on the exact positions now, but when they drafted him, there was talk of them looking to move him. And so, like, if there were some growing pains in that, like, it may take him a moment and you can't start him immediately.
Yeah.
You know, how that looks.
Yeah, we'll see.
That may just be either he's not great. And tackle is one of those where the majority of tackles are not going to be a Penei Sewell, and even Penei Sewell I don't think was elite his first year. I can't remember, but he's an elite guy now. Tackles typically in offensive line take a year or two to adjust to the NFL environment. Sure. And so,
which if you slide him inside to cover,
yes.
I'm not saying it's easy to play guard, but the transition may.
Yeah, it's typically easier. Could help that adjustment, and so that might be one of those things where you're kind of starting him, and it's just a deal with it. It's going to look rough this year, which is not ideal, and he might still be better than your potential starter in Andrew Wiley, but that might be a situation where the Commanders are in a kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place where Josh Connerly is younger and he's more talented, but he's also younger. So you're going to have to deal with some of those growing pains and some of the inexperience there.
But they're going to have to get it figured out because you can't, well, I mean, I already said you can't put out a weak offensive line in this division and expect to put up a lot of points.
Agreed.
So,
I'm not sure if I like it. It's another thing on the gambling thing of now I've seen precedent for it. So will they break the precedent? And the precedent is C.J. Stroud and the Texans, after his really good first season, they make the postseason and they win a playoff game. They go and get Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
And they go and get Joe Mixon, and they try to give him the weapons or bolster the defense or bolster the offensive line. And then last season, it doesn't necessarily work out. Now, Stephon Diggs got hurt, but Mixon was really good for them, but he wasn't necessarily a huge jump from the season before with Devin Singletary at tailback. I'm curious if is that something that's going to happen for the Commanders this season, where they bring in Laramie Tunsil to add to the offensive line, they draft another offensive tackle, and then I really want to see how, one, Terry McLaurin plays in a contract year where he hasn't gotten that extension. That's a huge question in the organization and in the fan base. And then Deebo Samuel as well, who got the third most money guaranteed this year out of any wide receiver behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but is in a one-year deal, and he's going to be in a prove-it deal because if he plays well, he'll earn that the next contract, but he's got to play well to earn that. So I think that's where it's going to help them because Stephon Diggs got the money, and then it just wasn't necessarily that he was motivated, and then he gets hurt, unfortunately. Deebo and Terry, I think, are going to be extremely motivated because they want to get paid. Yeah. And Terry, in my eyes, and your eyes, of course, Terry deserves to get paid.
100% agree.
Deebo, of course, thinks he deserves to get paid. So I think it will help them. But I've seen the precedent with the Texans last year, and I guess I throw it back to you. Do you fearful that you could see something like that, which in large part was injury-related, but they were super aggressive, and now those pieces that they were super aggressive about, Stephon Diggs isn't even there anymore.
Yeah.
Is that something you fear for the Commanders?
It's definitely a worry for multiple reasons. We definitely want to make some moves. You already said them, so I'm not going to restate them. But also just the fact of the schedule gets a little harder. The pressure ticks up. We kind of become a media darling. People love this team. People love Jaden Daniels, and so that puts us in this spotlight that we're not at all used to being in. Can we perform to the same level? One of my questions on there is, does Jaden Daniels, does he avoid the sophomore slump that's become pretty common, something that kind of befell C.J. Stroud, though I largely don't think it was entirely his fault, but still, do the numbers dip sophomore year? Is there tape on him? People figure it out. Another year in Cliff Kingsbury's offensive system, which doesn't always have the best lifespan, stuff
Sure.
like that. So it definitely is a concern. The thing I'll say about it is, and I know this is just a this season preview, but we've done a pretty good job about making moves while keeping long-term flexibility open, talking about the one-year deal with Deebo Samuel in terms of, like, if stuff doesn't work out, we can go, that sucks, move on, pivot somewhere else down the line. Obviously, like, you can only do that so many times before your window runs out. But we've not shoehorned ourselves in with all of these moves in terms of now all of a sudden we're in trouble and, the ship is sunk before it really even got off the dock, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, what do you expect from Jaden Daniels year 2?
I expect him to be really good. I think it's funny that JP used the Laramie Tunsil example, or used the Houston Texans example, because Laramie Tunsil was part of that O-line last year and now this O-line. But I will say he did just post his best run block grade and his second best pass block grade, according to PFF, of his career. So I don't know that Laramie Tunsil was necessarily the issue there. I expect another great year from him on that offensive line to kind of take care of Jaden Daniels' blind side. And I don't expect a sophomore slump. I do kind of expect it. And even CJ Stroud, I would say he had a sophomore slump, but in his defense, it wasn't just the Stephon Diggs injury. It was also the Nico Collins injury. And then, is Tank Dell hurt now?
Tank Dell is the guy that blew
out his
his
knee.
gone.
Play this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So all three, their top 3 wide receivers all missed time last season. And that's just a hard thing.
Sure.
While you're still, I don't know if he was ever down to just one of those guys, but even if down to just 2, it's just, it kind of, I'm sure, wrecks your mindset of
He was
like,
just down to Nico. For
Was it
the
down to
final
just Nico?
5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the offensive line wasn't great. There's a lot of reasons for it. I do think there's a world. I feel like we've talked about injuries so much on this show, but this is not the most deep skill position team,
No.
right? If something happens to Terry, then Deebo Samuel becomes your wide receiver 1, and I don't necessarily know if I trust him to be able to do all of that, right? Maybe he bounces back and can. The running back room isn't anything special. Brian Robinson's the lead back. He's fine, but he's not necessarily someone that like anyone loves. And then if he goes down, it gets bad quick. An older Austin Eckler that, once again, we're trying to let him ride off into the sunset. I'll say it now. I put it on the guys we drafted. Our 7th-round pick, gosh, can you pull it up? It's like McCroskey Merritt. Krosky Merritt. He, once again, y'all are my fantasy league, so I feel bad saying this. He's a fantasy sleeper for me. I think he's someone that could work up to 2nd on the depth chart. He started off last year really hot, great numbers. PFF guy Sanders, great PFF grades, but played 2 weeks and had a season-ending injury. But he's a guy, I watched the tape. I think he can bring something to this running back room and find a way to make an impact there in a deep league. But yeah, it's not really the best running back room, so it's not even something that they can rely on if Terry goes down and it's like we got to pivot to leaning on Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler to win us games.
I think the most, not most, this is not a like intriguing from an impact point of view, but just from I forgot he existed, is Michael Gallup. And this is just a brief tangent, but Michael Gallup is a guy who, I mean, in 2018, 2019, he was part of that wide receiver room in Dallas that was maybe one of the best. It was like the best 1-2 punch in the NFL, or at least up there, like top 3, top 5. And then like 3 years later, wasn't on the team anymore. So that's just a fall from part of an elite room to now he's the 3rd string behind Terry McLaurin.
I don't entirely know how old he is and how much he'll play, but he's yet another guy. It's like, hey, let's bring this guy that's kind of been around the league, give him another chance, see what we can get out of him. Yet another example of that. So,
yeah. What I'm really curious to see, and I don't hope we have to see it for Commander's sake, but if Deebo or Terry get hurt, I want to see, does Jaden still play well?
Yeah.
That's my first question, and like my only really question. I view Jaden, I think the way he played last season, he's right there in the top 5 already, because he was just
not just the NFC,
in the
but
NFL. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFC. I want to see him play without the great weapons, and if he plays well in that spot, then it's like, okay, the sky's the limit. We've got our quarterback going forward if we just can keep him healthy and keep him out of harm's way. I'm really curious, do we get to a spot in the season where that is a question of, can Jaden be the guy that he fully carries the team to a victory? Because I think even in C.J. Stroud's case last year, which we've used an example as a ton, yeah, he still played well in the games where it was, even if it was just Nico Collins or just Stephon Diggs, he was fine. Now, the numbers weren't great, but they won games, and that's really all I'm worried about is if those guys go down, does Jaden still carry them to wins? Doesn't matter if he plays great. Does he carry them to wins?
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing you care about at the end of the season is how many games you won. That's where you decide your seeding in the postseason.
What I'd say there is... go ahead. I didn't know.
My last point would just be Jaden's never experienced that because you think to the LSU offense with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., even back with Arizona State, he had Brandon Ayuk and N'Keal Harry as well. So he's had NFL-caliber receivers really all of his career.
Sure.
And now in the NFL, he's had Scary Terry and Diami Brown, who was really good last season. And Zach Ertz was a consistent piece for Jaden and a safety blanket. So we haven't seen that, which is why I bring up that question.
I do think he's good at working with the scheme like Kingsbury gives of if it does become a game where there's really not much there, he'll take the check down, he'll make the short throws, they'll scheme some stuff up to get it going. So I'd have optimism if that did happen that he would find a way to lead the team down the field and try and still generate some points. But Sanders, you kind of look like you had something you want to say.
I don't see the need to be like, oh, I want to see him play without his wide receivers. I would much rather be like, I'd rather just see him throw for 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns. Like that's, I know this not like, I'm not to like, I do agree that you can learn a lot about a guy by seeing how they do when they are like,
you hope you never have to see.
Yeah. They are having to persevere through challenges that they haven't yet experienced. But I would push back and say, like, either you can learn not necessarily the same lessons, but you can, if your goal is to see it, like, if the sky's the limit, if he plays well without one or two of his best weapons, I would say the sky's the limit if he throws for 4,800 yards and 40 touchdowns, like, or 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, and he has two 1,500, 1,800-yard receivers. Like, I think that kind of teaches you the same lesson of, like, all right, this is the guy, let's keep him healthy.
I bring it up because you're going to see that.
Yeah.
If Jaden is the quarterback in Washington for 10 years, you're going to see that.
Yeah.
And he has to be good enough to win games without that. Think of Mahomes. That was the biggest question going to the season the year they lose Tyreek Hill. Is he still going to be good? And they won the damn Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And not to compare Jaden to that, but that is what now separates the elite from all-time greats, and that's why I bring it up because I want to see that in Jaden.
Yeah,
I think he's got the potential to do that.
You're saying that as a praise almost more than anything. Sure,
I think he's got the ability to do it, but that is for me the only question I have. I don't have any worries about. I think he's gonna do and have seasons like that where he throws for 4,800 yards and he has 40 total touchdowns. I'm not worried about that. He's got the talent to do that. I reckon we're gonna see it. I mean, his numbers weren't eye-popping last season. It was the plays he would make down the stretch of games and the elite throws here and there.
Sure.
I'm not worried about him having a great season. I'm just worried about is he good enough to win when he's down to one weapon, which I think we have a chance to see because the depth isn't there from a skill position.
Yeah, they didn't really have their all-in offseason yet to me where they were like, all chips to the table, let's go win this thing.
Right.
I want to pivot to the defense real quick because we can all agree it was not a great defense last year, especially on the defensive line. Thinking about some of the games they had against Saquon Barkley that they got pretty ugly, which no one really stopped Saquon, right? But like those are just the examples that come to my mind. Secondary wasn't even great, right? It was kind of a piecemeal together unit. Some of these older guys that we've talked about, some younger guys. I want to shout out Frankie Louvu. I'm a fan. I think he's a really nice player. My boy Jackson Carter's a guy. Mikey Sanders still out of Michigan. Made some big plays. But I don't really feel like that they made huge strides to upgrade that unit, right? They spent their first-round pick on offensive tackle. Their second-round pick was Trey Amos, cornerback out of the school up north. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I think will be a good player. I'm not sure if I'm legally allowed to say that on this podcast, but I was a fan of that pick. But then we don't even draft a defensive edge, right? A huge issue of need. So I'm just curious if y'all think the consensus is like this defense will take a step forward this year, just kind of because we did make some moves. But like, is it really going to be good enough for it to get stops in key games in the playoffs or even in big regular season games, right? Or does that just not matter because you think the offense is going to be able to be good enough to make it happen?
I don't think the offense is necessarily
I don't think so
gonna be
either.
good enough. And so I do think it is a huge question. I think this is, for me, I'm lower on them than they were from a record perspective last season, not necessarily from a team perspective. And it's a large part because they're going to be in a lot of tough, competitive games. And it's just, they're going to be under question a ton of can they win the one-score game? Because, like we've said throughout this entire NFC East prediction, they play tough games as well, just as tough as the other teams, having to play at Lambeau, having to go to the Chargers. They go to Kansas City on Monday Night Football. They go to Miami. They don't go to Miami. They play in Madrid against the Dolphins. They have to play the Denver Broncos this season, and then obviously still having to play their division as well. It is. I think they're just going to be in a ton of spots where they're going to be in close games, which I pray for you. And from a heart perspective, of all the close games you're going to have to deal with this season, I think it's going to be that kind of season for them.
Sure.
And I think my only fear for you and for the Commanders is, are we going to look up at the end of the season and they're going to be 8-9, and we're like,
Yeah, how'd that happen?
damn, if we made one play here and one play there, and that may have even been the case last year. Like, if the Hail Mary doesn't happen, do they go on that run? Do they gain all of that confidence?
Yeah.
That is, again, that's another one where I want to see an evolution of Jaden in that locker room, and I want to see an evolution of Dan Quinn as a head coach.
Sure.
If you can play through this brutal schedule, when you come around to next year and the year after, where the schedule's gonna be easier than this next year or the year after, it has to be. If they manage to make the playoffs, that's the biggest thing for the season. If they can make the playoffs, they can beat anyone. They showed that last year, and they were really in their first rendition of this kind of team and organization. So that's the biggest question for me. Or are we going to look up at the end of the season and say, shit, we're 7-10. Why did we not make the postseason?
Yeah.
And then we're going to be in a ton of questions in the offseason, and they may make moves they don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about that from a Commander's perspective, which is why I have them going 10-7. Y'all don't see that happening, having them going 13-4, Sanders, and 12-5. Is there a reason that you see them winning all of these tough games? Because quite frankly, it's a brutal schedule in the NFC East this season.
Yeah, I don't feel like they lost enough coming from this season, from last season to this season, to lose any of that momentum or any of that chemistry. I feel like they retained a lot of the important pieces and then also added some pieces, and I guess I'm betting on those pieces clicking, because I don't think those pieces are those pieces. I feel like are secondary pieces that will be in addition to the primary pieces. A guy like Deebo Samuel, and I think that's going to be like an addition. A guy like Javon Kinlaw to help out on that defensive line, and then I see that those being not necessarily like the pivotal pieces or the foundational pieces, but the sprinkles on top. And so that's why I kind of, because their season is not dependent on those guys, there's less pressure on those guys, and therefore I see that more likely those guys succeed because they can play without that same pressure of they are like, you have to be good or else we're not making the playoffs. Because we didn't have you last year. We didn't have Von Miller last year, and they still went to the NFC Championship. So that's kind of why I see it being and I mean, they did lose some pieces. They did lose the sack leader in Dante Fowler Jr., but I see it working out for them. I see the sprinkles on top being enough to win 13 games.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have them 12-5. I'm a Commanders fan, so I wasn't going to not have them win this division going into my predictions, right? But you talked about this may be a season where they're under a lot of fire and a lot of close games, and we're going to need to see progression from Jaden Daniels and him become a leader. And I can confidently say there's no one I'd rather have to lead our team and to grow as a leader and to just play well under fire than Jaden Daniels. Like, I've fallen in love with the guy, as so many people have. It's just kind of this special player, both physically, But really, in my opinion, he's really special between the ears. The mental aspect of his game has really impressed me as a rookie. I know he's an older rookie, but to still come in and play with the poise he did as a rookie in the National Football League just really impressed me. And I think he's a guy that, he gets into some tough spots. The team's in some tough spots. They need someone to make a speech, get some momentum going. He's the guy I want. And so that's why I still have them, despite some roster questions and me maybe liking them. I would have liked them to improve the roster more. I still have them going 12-5.
I think they'll get it done. And the stats back up your point. Last season as a rookie, Jaden Daniels had 5 fourth-quarter comebacks and game-winning drives. That is, for a rookie, that's poise. That's doing it. Those are against the Giants, the Bears with the Hail Mary, the Eagles, the Falcons, and then against Tampa Bay, where that game was very close down the stretch, and then he leads a big drive in the fourth quarter. So I agree, 100%. Jaden is the guy I would love to have at quarterback for a season that's going to have a schedule as brutal as it is for the Commanders. That will now put the Commanders, for us, we have them going 13-4 as a group. We all have them winning the division, and they win the division, of course.
How did you? I was looking
as a podcast.
Jack's got them tied with the Eagles. Did you do the tiebreaker?
Yes, he has the Eagles losing more games in the NFC East, I believe.
I think it's tied at 2 each. I mean, we don't have to. I'm just curious.
I have the Eagles winning 12 games.
Did I look at that wrong?
No, Jack's got him winning 11 games.
Yeah.
How did I?
It was.
You have them tied with the Eagles at 13-4.
And you also have them tied with the Eagles at 10-7.
Yes, but I have the Eagles losing 3 times in the division.
I was looking at the wrong.
And the Commanders only twice.
Yep, I was looking at the wrong.
And
thing.
I believe I looked at yours, and the Commanders won that tiebreaker, if I'm not mistaken. You can double check that.
I'm not.
And
I'm not too worried about it. That looks right.
If you have the Eagles winning the division, you're wrong. That's not how that works.
They do the Commanders win the tiebreaker, okay. So we all have them winning the division.
Yes.
Continue.
Yes, we have them at 13-4, which closes out our NFC East predictions. The Commanders at 13-4, the Eagles at 12-5, and the Cowboys at 10-7, and the New York at 1-16. That closes out the NFC East. We will now go on to film our TikToks.
Hold up, I was just gonna give a little
final thoughts.
So, yeah, my current standings. My NFC East predictions put them as the hardest division in the NFL to date. I've got the NFC East going 559, which surpasses the NFC North, who I have going 530, and the AFC North both going 530, and the NFC South also going 530. So wow. NFC East I've got a 3-way tie for the second hardest division in the NFL. I'll be interested to see will a division like the AFC West or AFC East dethrone them, but I thought that was really interesting, given that I had the Giants going 2-15. That those other 3 records
didn't matter.
Yeah, the other 3 records were enough to boost them into first place. So NFC East is a tough division. We can break that further down in our big show, because I think we'll also discuss the worst division, and then we'll talk about the best division. But that was an interesting little stat that I found there. But yeah, we will be back here on Wednesday. Today's Sunday. We'll be back here on Wednesday to do the AFC East.
Bang.
We're getting closer and closer to the new studio. We are painting the studio this week, and then from there it'll be beginning to decorate, getting everything set up, and then deciding what day we want to be move-in day. So, I mean, that's going to be in the next it'll be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The next 3 weeks.
Cool.
So,
Massive.
Awesome.
Can't wait.
Just one last thing I want to say before we sign off, and that's I love the Commanders. But yeah, thanks for tuning in if you're still here. We really enjoy it. When you tune into the live stream, even if you're just watching, it means a lot. So hopefully we see you guys Wednesday, and peace.